Okay. So if I go back and open up the file that we were looking at, bio page 2, index.html, open with Dreamweaver, and then let's also open it here. So again, just going back to the schedule. So always start there. Today is 10th, and due at the end of the week is your logo type transfer. All of next week is going to be open lab. Your final presentation will be held to be determined. Well, I just haven't gotten to putting that there just yet. But if we go to calendar on my site, basically our final presentation will be, wait for it, on that Tuesday, same time, 2 p.m. to 3:20 p.m. And again, what I'm expecting for you guys for your presentation, if we go to the final presentation assignment, is remember we have 30 people in the classroom, or however many will be showing up, but we have registered 30 people. So again, all I really want you to do is get up here and tell me a little bit about the logo that you did, why you chose some of the typefaces that you did, what worked, what didn't work, what challenges arose, how did you solve them, so forth. So basically, if this is, again, bio page, HTML bio page 2 assignment, again, hi, my name is Mike Sinkula. I did the Premium DesignWorks logo. I was a print designer from way back. I used Arial Black because Arial was a web font, so on and so forth. Challenges that arose, well, because I'm the teacher and I've been doing this for however many years, I didn't find any challenges. So yay, good for me. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen, and that's your presentation, okay? So do we have any questions to start off with about what we did on Tuesday, putting this bio page together at all in terms of maybe the markup? Again, if we, let's just open up the Illustrator file that we were working from. About page 1, about page 1. So again, the challenge that you guys have, if you choose to accept that challenge, is taking what you did here in Illustrator, and again, if the settings are, we have a column of 500 pixels wide. We need to then transfer that width into our HTML document, which basically yesterday we set in the body tag. And again, I'm using a little bit different settings because we've updated or I've started going with the 960 grid. So max width, 620, margin 0 auto here to get it all to sit in the center. And then from your headlines here and your paragraphs, then you need to take those settings that you use in order to make a piece or a page that the typography is first and foremost readable when it comes to body copy, right? And then there's a hierarchy when it comes to the headlines and the paragraphs and the list items, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you then have this headline here, remember what we did with space before the paragraph here, space after the paragraph, right? If we go and we select this one, we have space before, space after, we have the font size, we have the leading, etc. So taking your settings then, and let's say if, I know I'm on my demo there, I was using 14/21, but typically these days I'm using 16/24. So therefore, in the body tag, remember when we talked about font size 100%, which this is the newer way. Instead of doing fixed pixels, right? Fixed pixels are still going to work, right? There's nothing wrong with doing fixed pixels. But again, if you wanted to take this and instead of font size 100%, so if we go here, font size 100%, everything is based off of then the 16 pixel mark, because when we do font size 100%, it then makes all the type, the M square, be 16 pixels. So if then, let's say my paragraph tag, I've said font size 1EM, how big is it? What was that, Mavis?
16 pixels.
16 pixels, right? So if I then said, well, font size, let's go real drastic here, 50%. And I saved that. Now what's the M square?
No. 8. Well, I know that.
8 pixels.
What do you mean by square?
So remember when we talked about the movable type days?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong lecture.
Anyway.
No. Type. Let's. No. I gotta find it. It's in here somewhere. So remember when we talked about the bounding box, and if I am saying 16 pixel type or 16 point type, that does not refer to from here to here 16 pixels, or from there to there 16 pixels. That refers to the bounding box is 16 pixels. Okay, so basically that's what the M square refers to, is the bounding box. And I think where the term M square comes from is the bounding box for the letter M.
And it's probably
Right.
square.
And it's a square. Right. See? See how logical things come to pass? So anyway, if I then changed my overall font size to 50%, right? That means then my M square would be 8 pixels. So therefore, if I then, for my paragraph tag, said font size 1M, it's going to be 8 pixels. If I said 2 M's, right, so on and so forth, okay? So if we then say, right, font size 50% here, 8 pixels. Well, our line height, if we say 150%, right, our line height now is 12 pixels, right? So if then we say font size 50%, which is 8 pixels, and in our paragraph tag, then we have said line height 150%, but we have then gone here and said font size 2 M's, right? It's going to basically say, well, an M is 12, so now it's 16/12. Wah, wah, not very readable. So again, if we go back to font size 100%, not 1,000%, that'd be way too big, then that is going to be 16 pixels. If we then say line height 150% all the way around, that's going to be 24. Now, because I said 2 M's here, right? If I then, let's take a look and see how this works. If I then said line height, 5, right? Because that would be 5 M's. So let's just do a test. Yeah, Christopher.
Does this bio page 2 have to match exactly bio page
No.
1?
It should in theory, but how perfect was your bio page 1?
I don't think it was perfect, so I could probably change it if it doesn't look on screen.
Correct. Right. That's what I'm saying. Like you want to, I understand that, and this goes along with every assignment. Hey, I get this question all the time. Can I sort of change gears a little bit? Well, sure. If you realize that, hey, I went down a path of despair, I don't want you to continue walking down that path, right? I mean, I don't want you walking down a dark alley by yourself. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's, pretty extreme, but you understand what I'm saying. So now let's go back here and let's say if I went back to my font size and said 1 EM and then line height 1.5 EMs, right? Then that gives us back the 16/24 or the 1/1.5, 2/3, because 1/1.5, your third grade teacher would not allow this, probably, right? The decimals and fraction, right? So 16/24 is the 2/3 rule or the 1/150 rule, 100/150 rule. Okay, so basically that kind of is a review then of what we were talking about on Tuesday. Any questions? Dana, did you watch the video? How'd it go? Good?
And if we're not using Dreamweaver, can we use another?
You can use whatever, yeah. Here's the thing with me. What I'm doing is, or why do I use Dreamweaver? A lot of people make fun of me for using Dreamweaver. Whatever. Here's my answer. I started using Dreamweaver in 1997 and it's never let me down. It's part of the Adobe suite that I pay for. I feel like I'm paying for it, I should use it, right? Okay, but with the new model of the way we work in teams and using GitHub, right? We then, okay, so just a sidetrack here. Is you will learn this workflow at some point in your career here. And this is the workflow then that I am going to make you do in WEB112, right? When you guys are working in a team of 3 or 4 people. So instead of FTPing through Dreamweaver, and Dreamweaver has a function where you can check out files, right? So that I can check out a file and then somebody can't check it out and overwrite changes I'm making. But the thing is, if I've checked out a file and it's 3 in the morning, right, and I'm sleeping and Adam needs access to that file, he has to wake me up for me to check it back in to grab it, right? So that is not a very efficient workflow, one could say. So when you get into doing things in teams, right, you are going to definitely have to work with version control, right? So what is version control? So Thomas Wilburn here was teaching here for a while. He is a data journalist at the Seattle Times. He is one of my most favorite colleagues of all time. He is Mr. Smarty Pants right? If somebody is a smarty pants, it's this guy, right? And I mean that with all due respect. So if we go to the ITC 210, here's the newer workflow or the team workflow that you would be doing in Web 210. So let's say it like this. And this is the workflow that, did you get it? Did you download the local instance? And no? Okay. So Mark and I are actually working on a project together right now where I just zipped up my local instance, sent it to him so he can put his local instance on his computer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work on this project together. We'll both have our local instance. And this is where we're not going to be using FTP any longer. So therefore, Dreamweaver is a little bloated. Okay, that's what basically a lot of people have against Dreamweaver. It's really bloated and slow. Okay, whatever, sure, sounds great to me. So that's where then I would start using something like Brackets, which is a much lighter weight piece of software that is only a code editor, no FTP, right? So if Mark and I, now what do you use, Mark?
NetBeans.
Sure, sounds great. Does it work for you?
Yeah, it's free.
That's wicked awesome, right? So let's say I'm using Brackets over here, Mark is using his over there. What we are then doing is pushing our code to GitHub. So for instance, the repo that we're going to be working on, and I don't mind opening up this repo because I was going to use it as an example today anyway. Thanks, Dana, for prompting me to open this, right?
So is Brackets not free?
Brackets is free.
Is it?
Yeah, I think doesn't Sarah and Olga use Brackets?
I use Brackets.
Hey, fantastic.
And
Right.
that's just for writing code.
That's just for writing code, not FTP,
It's also made by Adobe,
and it's also made by Adobe.
and it also does not have very good error checking. For
Yeah.
PHP, it is not good.
Yeah,
And so what do you use?
NetBeans.
NetBeans? Beans?
NetBeans.
It's free.
Yeah,
It's also free.
it's free.
Cool, thank you.
so if then I go to, let's say, my Jet City Improv, which you guys are totally not sick of this website yet, are you? Right?
Never seen it.
You've never seen it before. Well, good for you, because we're going to take a look at it in terms of using the @font face, right? So that's where Mark is now a contributor on, so if I sign in, if I sign in and I go to settings and I go to collaborators, there's good old Mark Pfaff as a collaborator on this project. So what that means is Mark now has access to, as we're working on this project, right? So if Mark opens up the style sheet, and in this style sheet, he is messing with the @font face stuff that we're going to take a look at here in a few minutes, right? Let's say he edits something like that. He pushes it then to GitHub. When he pushes that repository to GitHub, I can sync, download his changes to my local, right? And so then GitHub will, for instance, let's go to, I know we're taking a little sidetrack here, but it's a good sidetrack to know about. So for instance, then if, like, let's say in the HCD 532 stuff, right? Every time I make a change to anything in my code set, then I can leave a comment. So in my 532 class, where we're building something in 10 weeks, right? So what I'm doing is, like last night after we did the lecture, well, I made edits to style.css and I left the comment, make your website responsive, part 2. I was editing things in the include folder, and my edits I put under make your website responsive, part 2. So if I open this up right here, then GitHub will show me what changes I made and where. It'll show me what changes Mark made and where to the product that we're working on. Then instead of FTPing everything to our server, instead what we would do is, if this is our live server or staging server or whatever, we would via command line. Who loves command line? Who knows some really basic commands in command line? Who knows enough to do this, right? So command line being terminal, right? We would then open up and we would log into our live server using shell access. So has anybody ever heard SSH, okay, versus FTP? So if you're ever quizzed at a bar, what's the difference between FTP and shell access? FTP, I can log in, file transfer protocol, with a piece of software like Dreamweaver and push files to the server. With SSH or shell, I can log into the server via terminal and then access and pull things from this GitHub repo. So any changes Mark and I worked on then, we could actually log into the server and pull from the GitHub repo. So we could always then go back and do separate changes as well. So therefore, I wouldn't be using FTP, and I would be using a lot more lightweight code.
When you say terminal, are you talking about the basic COM terminal on the hardware? Or
I am talking about terminal, right? So I'm not going to log into my server now, right? That would be too out of scope of what we're talking about. But yeah, I could open up terminal and log into my server via shell access instead of FTP access. Two different protocols, right? FTP, file transfer protocol. SSH, secure shell hosting.
That sounds good.
Secure shell homies.
Homies. There
Homies,
you go.
right?
Yeah.
When homies are working on a project together, right? So that's the way we would do that. So you'll learn this methodology, I think, in 250. Are you doing this in 250, the GitHub stuff? Yeah.
Actually, they start dabbling before. Okay. So.
Yay. So anyhow, moving on to then getting back to what we should be talking about. So if we then go to, wait for it, Star. You ready? You ready? You sure? Here we go. Here's what I'm saying, Joe. They are so sick of my examples at this point in time. Oh my God, this is the most amazing website I've ever seen in my life. Whatever, doesn't matter. What does matter is we are using here Gotham Black as our font, okay? So again, how do we use fonts that are outside of the, again, if we are loading a web page, right? And let's say that web page we are using something like Trebuchet or let's say for my body copy here, I am using Georgia, Lucida. Okay, so here I'm using Lucida Grande, right? Most operating systems in this day and age, meaning Macintosh operating systems, and Microsoft platform Windows operating systems come packaged with Lucida Grande, however you want to say it, right? Come packaged with Lucida. So therefore, if I'm using Lucida here on my website, when this page loads, it is then saying, go find Lucida Grande or Lucida Sans Unicode, or if those two can't be found, use whatever generic sans serif, okay? Which typically would be Arial, most likely, okay? So it is then looking for this font in our systems folder, right? So remember when we were using Suitcase. What actually happens when we activate a font using Suitcase or Font Book? When we activate it, that font then, so do I have Suitcase open? Let's have one more dance party here. Oh, it didn't dance too long. But if I have Suitcase Fusion open, and let's say whatever American typewriter, no, let's see, that one, Xponto. So if I wanted to make Xponto Pro active, and I said either temporary or permanent, let's do temporary. What is actually happening is, again, as far as my understanding goes, is that font then is, Suitcase is making a copy of that font and putting it into the system folder, right? So same thing when you are activating fonts on your Windows operating systems, etc. I'm trying to stop using the term PC because I heard very recently that Steve Jobs always got, or Wozniak always got upset about the term PC only referring to Windows platforms because Macs were PCs too.
Personal computer.
Yeah, personal computer. So I'm trying to use the terms Mac operating system, Windows operating system instead. Trying to turn over a new leaf, you understand? Okay. So, but what if then we want to use something like on the best website you've ever seen in the world, something like Gotham Black. Okay. Well, we have a few different choices. We could use Google Fonts API, okay, which I believe you might get exposed to in WEB110 or WEB112. Okay. We could use a service called Typekit that I think now Adobe owns. One way, shape, or form, the Google Font API and or Typekit houses that font on their servers, okay, that then you access. So the Google Font API is pretty fast. It's Google, it's really fast. When I have housed things using the Typekit API, so Typekit is, like I said, it seems like it's Adobe has bought it now. But back before Adobe had bought it, I used this to house my, because I was using felt tip Roman here, I was using Typekit then to load felt tip Roman. Then one day I came into class here and I don't know what happened, if they updated Firefox or something happened, but all of a sudden in Firefox on the Windows machines downstairs, it just stopped working, which was very embarrassing for me, right? So what I did was I went back to then using the @FontFace methodology. Okay. So what does that mean? If let's go to my school's website, then repository. And in then the style sheets, we are using the at font face selector. Again, why am I pointing at the screen? I'm transitioning into recording right now, and for the people at home, they have no idea what I'm pointing to, right? So the at font face selector, right? We can then say font family, felt tip Roman. So this is going to be somewhat of a variable that we are then going to reuse, okay? So what does that variable then equal? Well, it equals, in the fonts folder, go look for felt tip Roman extended open type. In the fonts folder, go look for felt tip Roman extended open type, the IE fix version. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. In the fonts folder, go load felt tip Roman, the WOFF, World Open Font Format, I think. You want to check me on that, Mark? Look up what WOFF stands for, please, sir. Fonts, felt tip Roman, true type, okay? So, oh, and the last one, SVG, scalable vector graphic. So what's happening then is, instead of when my web page loads, instead of it looking for felt tip Roman in the system folder, it's looking for felt tip Roman in the fonts folder inside my theme. Okay, so this is a WordPress site, and if we then go back a directory, I then have, so for my theme, Students Premium Design Works, which is my school theme here, then here is my style sheet, right? Here is my fonts folder. So in the fonts folder then is all of these, the WOF, the TTF, the SVG, the EOT, right? All of them then live on my server, okay, which if I do page source and we do this. Oh, why don't I just open it like that? So if I open my style sheets and instead of style.css, I say fonts. These are then housed in that font folder. I also then in this fonts folder have the demo. Well, where did I get this demo from? So web font linking with that font face. So for today's lecture on my site from web font linking with that font face, first thing, find your font wherever you found it out there in the interweb, etc. Step 2, convert the font for usage. Now, this is where this tool Adobe and Microsoft and quite a few other font manufacturer or foundries have cracked down on this. Okay, so let's see if it works for then. Projects.premium. You guys know that I have a lot of hidden stuff all over my servers, right? JCI. Here's the file that I uploaded for Mark to download, right there. But then if we go web font kit, EOT, SVG, save link as desktop. Desktop. So let's say then I have Gotham Black that Jet City Improv has sent me to use. Now, here's the thing. The end user license agreement. Because Jet City Improv sent that to me, they are responsible for the end user license agreement. Meaning, doing it this font face way, the font that you are using, you may or may not have permission to house it on your own server. You may or may not have permission to house it on your own server. For educational purposes here in this classroom, you know, we need to learn this, okay? But they sent this to me and they had the license for it because they bought it. Fair enough. Great. Let's see if it still works or not. So what I would do then is I would go here to Font Squirrel and I would say upload fonts. I would go to my documents folder. I would pick Gotham Black, the true type. So here's the thing. We need to convert it to all the font formats. Mostly. We should convert it to all the font formats. So what do I mean by that? Remember when we were talking about font formats, PostScript, OpenType, TrueType? Yeah? Oh my God, that was so long ago, Mike. I don't remember that, okay? Well, we can generate all the file formats from the OpenType format or the TrueType format, but not the PostScript format. Let me say that again. If you are using a PostScript format typeface font, look for get the OpenType or TrueType version. So remember when we were talking about history of the font, again, if I go point at the screen, people at home aren't going to understand what I'm pointing at. TrueType versus PostScript. Okay, so remember PostScript is a really old version that PostScript came around, and that was the language that a long time ago the computers talked to the laser printers to send the outline format to the laser printers for high resolution prints, right? But if we go here, no, go back actually to here. So if we go to the CSS3 web fonts at font face rule at the W3 schools website, we can then see browser support for using the @font face property. So we can see that Chrome, Edge, and every time I say Edge, who thinks of the wrestler? Anybody? Anybody with me? No?
I almost think of the guy from YouTube.
That's the Edge.
Oh, well,
I watch wrestling, Jill. Nobody else does. I always try to ask them. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. So Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Opera, all support it. Ah, here it is, the web open font format. That's what I said, right, Mark? Are you paying attention?
I looked at the,
You did?
web open font format, web open font.
Right here? Browser support for fonts then, right? So we should see that TrueType and OpenType are supported on Internet Explorer 9 or more, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera. So we should get away, or should be able to get away with, just using the TrueType or OpenType, right? So we could basically do this right here, where we use the @font face selector, we say font family, we give it a name, and we say source, URL, we put it in our fonts folder, Euro style, OpenType, format, OpenType, weight normal, font style normal. Okay, so this is the way you should go if Font Squirrel does not work for you. But try Font Squirrel to start out with. So if I then go to Documents, Gotham Black, Open, it's already one. I thought let me see if I posted it on my server. I might not be able to do that. Well, let's put it this way. If you run it through then that @font face Font Squirrel, it will then kick you out a folder that then contains the EOT, the SVG, the TrueType, the World Open Font Format, Web Open Font Format, right? And give you this handy dandy little demo.
Oh, it makes it for you.
I did not make the demo. This demo was from Font Squirrel. It then, in the demo, says installing web fonts. Right. Oh. Right. And it gives you then this, where this right here is something that I would allow you to copy and paste. Right? Again, using my template, changing the name to you and turning it back in, not allowed. But this is something that I would allow you to do that, right? So, but make sure though, if in your, so if we look then through my folder here for BioPage 2, 2016, right? When you download it from Font Squirrel, see if I have the, I don't have the original. Man, I thought I had the original. That's okay. When you download it from Font Squirrel, it is going to give you all of this, right? So the demo, right? It will then give you this style sheet. So if I open this up with Dreamweaver, right, it'll give you this bit of code here. Notice what's missing though. It's not saying fonts folder here because this style sheet is inside this folder already. Okay, so if this style sheet and this demo are trying to access these fonts here, it's accessing them within the same folder. So one of the big mistakes I've seen students make in the past is if your index file is at the root of your folder, that you then need to, just like if you are for your image, trying to pull your logo transfer.png out of your images folder, remember that you have to send the path to the images folder, right? Again, this file then goes to look within this folder for the images folder for logo transfer PNG. Same thing. This is going to go look for in the fonts folder. So because this style sheet is internal to this file index, it's going to go look for these fonts now in the fonts folder. Don't forget to do that. Okay? Does that make sense? Who was with me there? Okay. Do I need to say that again?
It's recorded.
I know, I'm teasing. Smarty pants. So that's basically what we talked about there. And again, when you are testing this, make sure that because you may have the font that you're using activated through Suitcase in your system folder, when you test it, it's going to go pull it from your system folder. Again, this is on recording, Adam. So Adam, when you go watch this back and you hear me say, to test this, deactivate the font from Suitcase to see if it is pulling it from your fonts folder. Christopher is nodding his head, so he gets it. Right, Dana? All right, so that's what I have for you guys today for the @font face. Like I said, if you can't get it to work with Font Squirrel, this right here, doing it this way, either using the open type or if it's a true type, change the format to true type, and that should, air quotes, should work, right? We've had problems with this since they've locked me down. Ooh, let's try the other one. So students keep on sending me, hey, I found this one. Hey, I found this one. Bo found 2. Tiffany found 1. Let's see, web font generator. Alternative font squirrel. Choose a file. Gotham Black. Open. Bad. Legal. Yes. Generate. Download package. Documents. Gotham Black zip. Save. I will take those other generators and move them up in my lecture. The links, but they're down there. That's the good thing about the comment section. Again, if you ever have a, hey, I found this thing, I'm going to send Mike an email. Stop yourself and don't send me an email. Not that I don't want it in an email. I'd rather you post it as a comment on my site. I'll get the email anyway, and then I can go refer back to it. So let's see what it gave us. Documents. Gotham Black zip. Hey, look at that. And there it is. Oh, look at this. You might have to do some finagling. Let's do the preview. Gotham Black. Yeah, it jumbles it here, but all right. Like I said, you should just be able to get away with just your true type, open type, and leave it at that.
If our fonts are system fonts, do you want us to do this anyway for practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. This is one of these things called exercises for learning outcomes,
Cool. Just making sure.
right? Again, hear me when I say this. In this class, for this exercise, no using the Google Font API, no using Typekit. Alicia, I'm very, very sorry about that. Alicia's at home.
I know, you already told me.
I already told her, didn't I? Yeah, okay. All right, so that's what I have for you today. The rest of the 25 minutes or so will be open lab, and then again, the schedule all of next week. Here is the lecture, why aren't you done yet? Which I'll just point to that, and that'll be that, and then you'll have the whole rest of next week to get everything done and turned in. Any questions before I turn the recording off? Anybody? All right, Alicia, we're going to talk about the secret assignment.